So, welcome everybody. I am Cindy Myers, and my website is yourenergyhealer.com. And tonight we're going to talk about what it is being an empath, which I think we all are to some degree. Um, but some of us are definitely more empathic than others, and not just having empathy. I mean, having the intuitive sense. Because there's lots of different types of intuition. There's clairvoyance, clairaudience, um, uh, you know, pretty much for every of our five senses, there's an equivalent of a intuitive sense, but there's extras. And being an empath is one that you feel others' emotions as well as possibly physical stuff. I happen to feel both of those. And when we get to the demo portion of the webinar, that's what I'll be tuning into. I'll be able to feel what is blocked in your system, or oh, your neck's out, or your back, or something is going on, because I feel it in my body. And I thought that the topic came to me because it means that well, let me back up. If you're not sure you're an empath, some of the signs, and let's go into it here, right straight into it. If you feel overwhelmed being out in public, ask yourself, how is it being around people, especially a lot of people? Is it feeling overwhelming? You start getting a little anxious. Maybe you don't feel good all of a sudden. Um, the anxiety can really pick up. Just discomfort, both physically and emotionally. You just kind of want to find a space away from people. Maybe you get headaches after being around a lot of people, or you just feel really, really exhausted. Those are some of the typical symptoms of, or I don't like to use the word symptoms, um, um, but for the lack of a better term, that's kind of how it feels when you're around people, a lot of people. And the reason I wanted to talk about it was because this last weekend I got to go up to Seattle to have some time with my sisters and family, and have a little getaway. And Seattle's a pretty big town compared to my little town of Cresswell, Oregon. And so it was fine most of the time because I'm used to being with my family. But we took a long walk in the downtown area, and it was pretty good for a while, until we got close to Pike's Market. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if several buses got let out recent, but it was like all of a sudden there was just a mass of humanity. And I did not have time to fully prepare myself, or I'm also out of practice, so that could have been it. But holy moly, did I get overwhelmed very quickly. And I was experiencing the headache, the backaches, the emotion, the stress of everybody. Oh my goodness, I was just, I felt like the walls were caving in on me. And even though I was aware of what was happening and using all the tools that I teach you guys, and we'll go over those later, it was still really, really hard. Um, I mean, the root, the world started spinning at one point because of it. The energy was so intense and so strong. And I managed to find, well, I don't know, my sisters and I were kind of, they were brainstorming where we were going to go next. And, and I managed to find a little spot that I could just kind of breathe for a few seconds and just kind of put a wall around myself, a bubble of white light. And that kind of rebounded me enough to get us through the rest of the crowd and maneuver myself through it. But whoa, it was intense, and it was really tough to get through. So it was because it was very peoply. And then as soon as we got around the next block, there was hardly anybody around, and I could breathe, and it was so different, and I could start recovering more. And again, I used my tools to just kind of breathe acknowledge what just happened. And I said, oh man, I told one of my sisters, go, that was really intense. And they're empathic to a certain degree as well. So they all felt the same way. So at least we were on the same boat of trying to get the heck out of Dodge and get out of the public environment. So that's just part of who it is to be an empath. And sometimes, it just isn't always fun to do some touristy kind of things, unfortunately. In other times, but had just done a museum and it was quite crowded in there. And it was still intense, but I could enjoy it and have a good time exploring the museum, even though it was crowded in spots. But I was more prepared for it. So you can still do some things as an empath and being in a large groups, but I do limit it myself. So I wanted to share that with you because some people don't realize how empathic they are, and they have these symptoms or experiences, and they just kind of think they kind of going nuts sometimes. So that's kind of how it felt in the moment was, oh my gosh, if you didn't know why all of a sudden you're doing fine and then the world just wants to, it feels like everything's kind of burying you in energy and you don't have good language for it, you go, what the heck just happened? And so I wanted to talk about it because a lot of empaths just have no idea that they're empaths. And if you don't know it and you don't know how to take care of yourself and use some of these tools, those emotions really get stuck in your body. And it can also limit what you want to do with for yourself, or you feel bad because you can't participate in things the way you normally do. And I'm fortunate that my family knows how sensitive I am. And so they kind of rallied around me when they saw that I was struggling too. And they worked on quickly finding a better place for us to go to and not force, because I want to stay here and see all this. No, they knew that this was really hard. So let's get the heck out of this area. There's more things to see and do. And we were all happy to go do that. So I was fortunate that I had a lot of support in dealing with some of this stuff. And I want to be that support for other people if you're struggling and you don't know how to be an empath. There's lots of things. There's way to get educated so you understand who you are, what you are, and you know what's a good environment for you to be in. And then if you do have to go into a place that is more uncomfortable, you have some tools to help you through it. And even if it's uncomfortable in the moment and intense, then you still have those tools to help you recover afterwards. And that can just be as important as just managing being in the people. And again, it isn't 100% effective, even knowing and having all the tools. If you're this sensitive, you just have a hard time being around that many people. So I wanted to talk about that. So let's talk a little bit about, I wanted to also bring up the chakra system, because when I was experiencing all that, it's like everything was firing at the same time. It's like a major electrical storm. And if you've ever been in a really dry electrical storm, I don't like dry, windy days because the frequencies and the energy it kind of makes my system feel like it's shorting out. And that's kind of how it felt like in that moment of intense energy. It's like everything was firing, but against each other and not flowing well. And so when you have the chakra system, they're like power systems throughout your body, and things are shorting out when you're around a lot of people. And so we want to get those all rebalanced and cleared. And when you breathe, you can actually kind of picture going through each of these points in through each chakra points in your body. And as you're breathing into each one of those, that can help you get rebalanced. So that's why I wanted to throw this chart up and just kind of look at the graphic. Sometimes that helps more than the words, is just kind of think of where each one of those dots are in your body and breathe into those spots. And you might start, I like when I was really in the high frequency state, I start at the bottom because that's your ground. And so when you can get well grounded, a lot of times I don't make it past the third or fourth. I start feeling better if I start with the ground. Other times I'll start from the crown and go down, but in that case, it's really important to get back to getting grounded because that's kind of how it feels like the ground. There is no ground when I get into that overwhelmed state. So I want to start at the base and get grounded again. So think about breathing into each one of those dots. So kind of hold that picture of that graphic of where those dots are and know picture it in your body and then just simply breathe into them. You don't have to know any other kind of energy. Just know that if you breathe into those spots, that will help you calm your system and rebalance it to some degree and get you through it. I also wanted to share this with you because when you're in the crowds, a lot of folks are residing in that lower frequency state. So the shame, guilt, grief, fear, anger, especially anger, you know, if they're frustrated, they're having, they're maybe snapping at their spouse or their kids or whatever, there could be crabby. And that energy is just pouring out. And if you're walking in that environment, you're absorbing it, you're feeling it. And there's a lot of people, or they're anxious. They themselves are anxious, and that's in the lower end too. And so any anxiety, or they don't know where they are, or maybe they're empaths too, and you're picking their stuff up. So just think about it. If you're in a crowded space, in your energy, people, it's not a truth statement when somebody says your personal space is arm's length. It's nonsense. It can be way out there. And those of us that are more sensitive, it actually fluctuates a lot. So those of us that are more sensitive, mine can go out acres. I live on a 5-acre place on purpose where it was semi-intentional, but that's where I can let my energy just relax and it goes out that far. And I can usually, if nobody's in that space, I'm okay. Although I can feel people a little beyond that. But it doesn't usually bother me. So I can be my most relaxed with 5 acres. So my energy, when I'm just kind of chilling, is at least 5 acres out there. Okay. Now I know how to bring it back in. But even in a big public place, it is so hard to hold it right up against your skin if people are, right around you. It takes a lot of energy to hold it in that tight. So even if you bring it in arm's length, there's still people going in and out of that space and people you don't know and their energy, or even people you do know. If they're frustrated or nervous or anxious, you're feeling all that energy coming through your body. And so that's why you start getting wiggy. At least I do. And so those lower frequencies, they also move slower. So they tend to get more stuck. Now, if everybody was in the, love or above, like I like to call it, love, joy, peace, enlightenment, anybody's that's that higher frequency, you probably would be just fine in those public places because that energy feels so beautiful. But most of the time, it's not. It's in that lower frequency range. People are stressed out and not necessarily happy and having a great time. They're just maybe you're lucky if they're in the neutral place. But there's a lot of folks that are in that lower range and you're picking it all up. So that's why it's really uncomfortable. So think of this, and if you're staying on for the healing circle later on, when we start doing the meditation part, I'm going to have you tune yourself. I'm going to have you breathing in with every breath that love or above and frequency, so you have a visual of what that also looks like. It's very high frequency, and these are magnitude stronger. These are not just to 10 times or 100 times. It's to the power of. So these are very, very high frequency emotions, the love or above. And that's why they're healing. That's why they're healing. They move super fast so they can rebalance and tune and clear out the junk of the lower frequencies that tend to get stuck in your body. It's also very calming and soothing. It triggers the calming system versus the lower frequency triggers the adrenaline, the fight or flight response system. So you want to turn on the calming system. So that's why we go to the lover above. So even so, in that little space that I've carved out for myself, while all that energy was happening, I was breathing in and picturing that love, love energy, love above. Actually, I was tuning to peace, trying to breathe in peace and calm, and that did help and long enough to get me out of there. So again, we want to breathe into those spots in the chakra system, or just especially that root chakra down at the base, uh, and uh, think about practicing it with somebody that's safer. You know, practice being with a couple people maybe, and seeing if you can tell what's going on as an empath. Are you feeling it? Are you feeling what they're feeling? If you're sitting or standing near them, that might, go ahead and ask them questions. Are you experiencing some anxiety or something? I can tell. Maybe I can tell you're struggling a little bit, or are you struggling? You ask questions, and people are usually quite happy. They may say, "Oh, no, I'm fine," but they might say, "Yeah, I am." How did you know? Go ahead. How I felt. So you just tune in and you're listening more carefully. And that also helps because, you know what, if it's not yours, don't hang on to it. You know, a lot of times, if I feel something, if I know what I'm feeling in the moment, then all of a sudden I don't feel good, or I have my mood has suddenly shifted to a darker, frequent, darker emotion. I go, what the heck happened? They go, oh, it's probably not mine. And I'll ask, is this mine? Yes or no? And I'll hear a quick yes or no in my head. And if the answer is no, it's not mine, then get rid of it. I don't need it. I don't want that in my body. So I clear it out quickly because I want to go back to being in my higher frequency state. So just be kind of aware. And it can be really subtle. You don't realize, you can't always tell that if it's yours or somebody else's, because it sounds like your head, your voice coming in going, oh man, I'm all of a sudden and crabby, or you're just see that your mood has changed, and we're so into our own little world that we don't realize how we can be taken off course by somebody else's energy. And so becoming more conscious of that can really help. And you can ask that simple question: is this mine? Yes or no? If the answer is no, I don't want it. Go away. Especially if it's a total strangers. I don't need to carry their energy. If it's somebody I care about, you know, then I know how to help them using my tools and other things, or help them through it if they want it. So then I can use that information to help others. And that's what you do for like in the demo session. I use it as a tool then, but it doesn't stay in my body. I know how to release it quickly. And so, and the other thing is, learn to receive when somebody is giving you kindness. Like my sisters, boy, did that feel nice when they saw that I was struggling, and they kind of shepherded me to a quieter place. That was really, I really appreciated that they saw that and are sensitive to knowing that I'm a hypersensitive person, that they wanted to also be a little protective of me and care about me. So I received that made me feel really good inside, that they were taking care, they were being caregivers of my energy, because I'm usually the other way around. So I learned to receive, and because empaths tend to be always givers, and so learning to receive is kind of hard for some of us. So when you learn to receive, well, that energy to come in, it's healing. And then I also use that gratitude or love or above, the gratitude, peace and calm. I use it with purpose and intention. It takes about 2 minutes to trigger that calming system and have that energy flowing through those chemicals, those calming chemicals to flow through your bodies. So I truly use that chart, that love or above, to help me through when that energy is really intense. use it with intention, and then not just in the moment. Again, it's the after part. Because again, we may not be always able to avoid it, but the self-care afterwards, use that chart and that breathing and retuning and breathing in each of those chakra points, or just allowing that love or above energy. Really breathe in, use it with intention. Take that time to just allow that healing energy to regroup and um, rebalance your system so it doesn't overwhelm you. Otherwise, you can. I've come home with migraines, and fortunately, that didn't happen this time because I used these tools. I would have probably had such a massive hangover, not hangover. It feels like a hangover, but I would have probably been had a migraine if I hadn't used these tools. And that's how I used to experience being in crowds, was that I would get such a terrible headache being around them all because it was so overwhelming. So that shows me that these tips and tools really do help get you through those, tougher moments energy wise. So some things of this, I sorry, my tongue is still not working right after my vacation. Anyway, I have a new group called Heal the Healers. It's really more about helping folks learn how to use these tools, but also I create an activity for you. It's an experiential type of thing that you get to do that helps you focus on your what is your true north. And I know that if you have a real solid ground and where you who you are as your authentic self, then it's harder to get off course. And so you can be a better caregiver to others, whether you're truly a healer uh, doing this kind of work, or your own kind of uh, if you're a therapist or uh, a nurse or any kind of a healer of some sort, or a doctor, whatever. You don't have to just be that. Or a caregiver of somebody else. You could be a caregiver of a business. Anybody that is having to give a lot of your energy to others, you're you fit this energy. So pretty much everybody. Anyway, we wanted to find some tools for you to help you get really grounded in who you are, because if you're doing that, then you can help others more. So you want to have that self-care and some tools to use to really get to know yourself. And again, if you're really solid in who you authentically are, then it's harder to get off track. And the problem with folks that are healers of any kind, caregivers to others' needs, is that you tend not to be as you forget to do the self care, and you're last on the list, and so you're in the overwhelmed state all the time. And then it's when you're so exhausted because you haven't taken enough time for yourself, because maybe you don't have enough time for yourself, then you get off course, and the energy you start going into a negative spiral, and it's just harder and harder to do things for everybody else. You run out of gas. So we want to get you regrouped. It's not just a meditation. Again, I create experiential exercises that really get past your lizard brain and to get into that authentic voice to help you get refocused on who you are and where you need to be in the moment. So the next one is June 26th at 6 p.m. It's a Monday. And I do charge on this one. It's a $30 fee for attending this class. And I'll be sending out an email about that shortly. And it should be on my website. I haven't checked, but I believe it is right now on the website. So you can register for it there. Let's see, upcoming events. So we have a healing circle this Saturday. We're back on track at 12 noon Pacific time. And the next Wednesday, no webinar. We're just going to have a healing circle. And then in 2 weeks from today, we're going to have an animal emotions webinar. And we'll talk about probably getting ready for the 4th of July. It's a biggie for folks with a lot of pets have real issues with 4th of July, and people too. People with PTSD, veterans and stuff. That can be tough night for folks. So anybody that is struggling with 4th of July fireworks, hop on. We'll give you some more tools and see what we can offer for you to get you through the 4th of July. All right, so we'll stop the sharing and see if anybody wants a experience. Especially if you've never experienced a clearing, I'm happy to tap in and release any trapped emotions, or if anybody who has experience and just needs some support, now's a good time to raise your hand or unmute yourself. Let me know you want to experience it. Get a sip of water. Anybody? You all shy? Okay. Nobody wants it. All right.
Hi, Cindy.
Hi. Hello, Heidi.
So I'm completely brand new here, but can you explain a little bit about what we would need or what we need to tell you, or just a little bit more about how that works?
Sure, of course. So again, what I do is I scan you. I'm going to tap in and scan you. And if you have a specific thing that you want me to look at, that's fine. Physical, or you're just having a rough moment. But mostly, I just kind of tap into your higher self and see if I can't see what's going on and help you release trapped emotions that might your higher self says that needs to get released in the moment. But if you have something specific, your back or whatever, if you're struggling with a health issue, then I can work on that specific thing too.
Okay, in that case, I would volunteer.
Okay. And do you have something specific, or do you want me just to in general?
I have chronic pain in general in a variety of places, but I would say the worst for me on a normal day would be head, neck, and shoulders.
Okay. I was going to say, your neck's really out.
Yeah, it's really hurting me even right now. I've had headaches all day. I think perhaps this one could be from the weather change. That was a drastic weather change overnight, but I'm not sure because it's a common problem for me to have. But yeah, my neck has always been the worst of it all generally.
Okay. And is it okay? So the neck is about this is about as far as I can turn it to my left. Not much further on the right. Is that
Yeah.
accurate? Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
I can turn it, but it always hurts. And all
okay.
the muscles, like from my
And,
head running down my neck into my shoulders, it's all
okay.
connected.
Okay. And on a pain scale of 1 to 10 right now, where 10 is the worst, where are you at?
Oh, that's a tough one for me because I live with chronic pain. But I would say right now it's about a 7.
Okay. So let's see if
Like
we can't budget. So I'm tapping in more now. Unsupported is the first emotion. Okay, we got a little more to the right. Anxiety, clearing that. A little more to the left. Hmm. Confusion, clearing that. Lack of control. Yet, okay. Frustration, clearing that. Starting to get it a little, your system calming down a little bit. Discouragement. Oof, yeah. Depression, clearing that. Unworthy, clearing that. Do you know about when this started?
Which, the neck issues or?
The chronic pain.
Uh, the first time I remember having it was in my 20s. Um, but it just gradually got worse every decade. So,
Um,
um, but yeah, I would say like it really, really peaked about 5 years ago. It just was beyond, and that's when I got diagnosed.
okay. Um, have you had anxiety or depression or any of those emotions
Yep, I
for
have
most of
anxiety.
your life?
Yes, I've had anxiety disorder since I was young.
Um, okay. Um, do you know anything about your birth?
It was difficult, and I was breech.
Okay, because I'm getting you had birth trauma, and that was the start of all this. Uh,
Oh,
so let me clear birth trauma. Okay, now let me check in and see, did we move that pain scale down?
oh my gosh. Yeah, it actually feels a little bit less.
Still feel a little bit of the headache. Um, I think your neck is a little better. Can you try moving that gently?
Yeah, it doesn't hurt as much when I turn it side to side. It stems from, um, I guess, the area between my shoulder blades, and it comes up from there. So even if my neck feels a little looser, the tightness below it will come back and spread up my neck. That's pretty much what happens to me on a daily basis.
Okay,
So it's like shoulders, neck, base of my head, migraine.
okay. So this is fear-based and a habit that got created at birth.
Wow.
And um it's it's nonverbal because you had no verbal language back then. And so do you wake up with the pain?
Yes. It actually
It's when
the
it's worse.
yeah, at night going to bed, it's sometimes very hard and I get nerve pain shooting around in my brain.
Yeah,
And same thing sort of in the morning when I'm waking up, it can be it's
right.
hard for me to find a comfortable position to sleep.
Right. Because that's when you're being when you're birthing, um, when you're going to sleep, it's the most, how do I say this? When you're being when there's birth trauma and your breathing is inhibited, it creates, if you can't breathe, you panic. And so
Mhm.
when you start going to sleep and your subconscious is relaxing and your breathing slows down, it triggers, oh my God, I can't breathe.
Hmm.
And so then you have some anxiety, and then those chemicals start flowing through you. So we need to change the habit. And it, again, because it's pre-verbal, when the actual habit got created, you can talk to a therapist till from now until doomsday. It just
And
is
I
in
do.
the verbal center, and that's fine. There's a place for all that. but it happened before you could speak. And so we need to change the habit of what's going on, and using these tools to breathe and calm yourself down, and just talk yourself down out of it, because you know what we want to do is trigger your parasympathetic response system as much as we can, because your adrenaline based, that fear based, that panic, uh,
Hmm.
it got started from, well, moment one of your
Hmm.
life, and so you have a lot to overcome, and that's why it's taken that, well, the chemicals of the adrenaline based stuff, it isn't always overnight. We can tolerate so much of these trapped emotions, and without our body, you know, falling apart, or emotions, we can rebalance it. But once it exceeds that threshold, then we start having problems. And right now, so you, for the first 20 years, your body was able to tolerate it and kind of recover from all those, and from that anxiety. But then with each decade, as you said, now you're over that threshold. So it's just build up until you have that chronic pain. So what we need to do is get rid of a lot of those trapped emotions and get you under that threshold. And so that's just going to take, I can only release so much, because they're actual chemicals in your body, and we have to release a little bit at a time so you can process them out. But we can get rid of them. And you just saw that by ridding half a dozen or so emotions, you just knocked your pain down.
Yeah, that was I don't know what the word is. Amazing.
So yeah, if you want to keep getting some more help, we could do a lot in 15-minute sessions even. So you might look into those, or for the coaching part, we can do, to help you learn how to use these tools yourself, which is really important, because then you can do it every single day, and in putting in the good chemicals into your body. So uh, we can talk about it more if you really like to learn more how you can do this. Your body is designed to recover this stuff, and so that feeling of hopelessness or lack of control, we can give you something now to give you a sense of control and hopefulness.
Thank you.
It's not that hard to do, really. It's made to be easy. It just has to become aware and conscious of it. Now you are, and you understand too where the source of it is.
Yeah, that's never come up in all the different doctors and therapy and everything. No one's ever asked me about my birth. So like I was so shocked when you asked me that, because I was like, that's never come up in all these years. Never. um, yeah.
You'd be surprised, and it should be one of the first questions asked of folks, especially folks that have had lifetime anxiety and depression or emotions like that. It's often tied back to early trauma,
Mhm.
either birth trauma or within the first couple of years of their life.
I've had plenty of trauma through my childhood, my teens, my
Well, it
adult,
acts like a magnet then.
but
When
yeah,
you
but I
attract more and
never,
more and more and more and more, it acts like a
yeah,
magnet. And so it unconsciously is because you're perceiving things, your lizard brain is perceiving things in that way. So then it it's not it happens more because it acts like a magnet. So shifting your energy, and by using these tools, and the coaching part of getting you tuned to that, remember that chart I showed where
yeah,
you tune to that higher frequency, that
love or above.
changes, yeah, changing that love to you love or above, where you're tuning yourself more and more to that. It helps stop all that other stuff, because now you're tracking more of that as opposed to more of the trauma. But the lizard brain is is kind of taken over, and it keeps attracting more and more of the anxiety, and that's part of the habit. So we're becoming, so the tool that I teach is to recognize when you're triggered, calm that down and go to the lover above, and that quiets lizard brain down, and then the pain goes. You can actually manage that pain so much more by using that lover above.
That's great. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So yeah, just reach out, go to my website, and we can get you set up and get you going. You shouldn't have to deal with that chronic pain. That's no fun. Anybody else have anything? Thank you for sharing with everybody. I appreciate it. Anybody else? All righty. So let's go into the healing circle. And again, Heidi, I hope you stay on for that because this will be beneficial to you. I'm going to stop the recording here.